I want to know how far you can go in Minecraft with absolutely nothing. That's why my friend Hobby and I have spent 400 days in a world with nothing but 3 layers of dirt. In that time, we've managed to turn this barren wasteland into a beautiful island base. And now we're on a mission to collect every item possible. This challenge is so hard that there's currently no way to get to the nether or the end, or even to get something as basic as stone. That means no furnaces, tons of villagers we can't get, and lots of missing redstone components. Which is why on day 401, I set out to make a manual sugarcane farm, using the sugarcane we just acquired from the wandering trader in the previous episode. We have lots of manual farms in this world, but we've also found really creative ways to make things a tiny bit faster for ourselves. While I was working on the new farm, Hobby decided to take on a straight iron golem in our base.
I'm gonna take care of the golem in our base. Wish me luck.
No, Hobby, be careful.
I'm a pro. I know my limits. I got him.
We both spent the evening shearing sheep for some rock wool. We call it rock wool because without access to stone, light gray and gray wool have become our main terraforming blocks. It's really hard to describe just how brutal this challenge really is. Just getting wood in this world took us the first 100 days. We used the bonus chest in order to get a log for a crafting table and an apple. Then we farmed zombies for iron to make a cauldron and collect water. Using the water, we farmed drown for a lightning rod, then turned our pigs into piglins and gathered enough gold for a golden apple. We were able to get a witch to throw a weakness potion at a zombie villager so we could cure him and trade for enough emeralds to get the sapling from the wandering trader. Now, we've made tons of cool farms, and in this episode, we're about to come up with some of our most creative tech yet. Unlocking sugarcane on day 394 had also given us the ability to craft lecterns and get librarian villagers. So Hobby started resetting librarians to try to get some useful enchantments. He set to work putting in the lecterns and moving the villagers around for the day. I continued preparing the area for our new sugarcane farm by farming and placing lots of rock wool. By the end of the day, we had both made good progress. Hobby got an infinity trade, and I was able to start planting the first stalks of sugarcane. The sugarcane farm continued to expand over the next few days as I carefully arranged the water pattern and propagated the plants as they grew. Unfortunately, part of the sugarcane fields overlapped with a slime chunk, so I had to use carpet and slabs to prevent them from taking over. Meanwhile, Hobby was able to unlock the mending trade so he could finally revive Big Dig, his infamous diamond shovel. In a classic turn of events, I accidentally created a Mog Farm, which is what we call it when I forget to light up my terraforming projects and mobs start spawning like crazy. I basically struggled with the monsters all night long, but Hobby was kind enough to share some golden carrots with me at dawn to cheer me up.
Here you go.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Share the wealth.
On day 405, Hobby unlocked an Unbreaking 3 trade, which was a welcome addition to our enchantment collection. It was raining, which reminded us that we need to get our pig farm ready for any potential thunderstorms. Since we eventually want to fill up our museum with every possible item, we need to collect lots of gold ingots for all the tools and armor. And the only way to get gold is by converting as many pigs into piglins as we can each time there's a thunderstorm. That's why we built this giant pig head. It helps separate the piglins out from the pigs when they get struck to ensure maximum efficiency. The way it works is zombified piglins sink in water and the pigs keep floating. While Hobby worked on breeding up the pigs, I was focused on fixing the ugly holes in our angry pig's face. I moved the ladders forward a block and added some trapdoors to make it look a whole lot better. Once the pigs were all bred, Hobby went back to collecting enchantments so we can both improve our set of tools. I also returned to my task of expanding the sugarcane farm as much as possible. It's getting there.
I think I'm gonna call my sword butter knife.
On day 406, Hobby got an efficiency 5 trade, so he started working on collecting and combining all of our new books to make me a perfect set of tools. I spent the day mining rock wool and collecting moss to use for the sugarcane cliffs. That evening, I took a stroll through the cliffs using the Mini HUD mod's light overlay to double check that everything was mob proof. Then the next day, Hobby started grinding through the librarian trades in order to unlock the glass trade. We managed to trade for our very first piece of glass in this world, and it only took 407 in-game days. That's over 100 hours of playtime. Hobby dropped off some of the glass with me, and I decided to take a break from the sugarcane fields to work on replacing the leafy drop chute of our mob farm with our shiny new glass. I decided to make the glass into a rainbow pattern using the dye from our little flower farm. Unfortunately, we still have no green dye, so I had to skip that color. Even though on day 394 we did unlock Cactus from Wadi T alongside the sugarcane, we still have no way to smelt it into green dye because we can't craft furnaces and you can't roast cactus on a campfire. While I continued dyeing and placing in the glass, Hobby began creating a body for our angry pig head. This should give us even more room to store pigs in between thunderstorms. Hobby was really struggling to try and figure out the dimensions of a pig body.
4, 5. It keeps moving, this is a pain.
So while he worked that out, I finished crafting up all the glass colors and I was ready to place it all in. This was gonna be super dangerous, because not only was I up high, but mobs were whizzing past me every few seconds. Just as I had feared, a zombie dropped right on top of me. Oh! No shot I lived that. What the heck? It took all of my bravery to climb back up and finish fixing the eyesore, but by the end of the evening, I was almost finished. Unfortunately, however, I was out of glass. Meanwhile, Hobby finished up Angry Pig's bad-tempered body. Then, on day 10, Hobby moved our pigs into the new torso while I spent the morning tidying up the area in our storage room where the first villagers used to live. They had been tragically killed by zombies on day 395, marking the end of an era. Afterwards, I went back to work on the sugarcane cliffs, but Hobby noticed some slimes respawning in one of our autumn trees, so I spent some time adding carpets to the canopy to prevent further slimy encounters. Hobby then traded for some more glass so that I could finish off converting the drop chute. In our first 10 days, the impact of unlocking sugarcane could already be felt all over our world. We had a huge new farm for the crop, tons of amazing trades from our new librarians, and a beautiful new drop chute for our farm. But Wandy T's visit on day 394 that brought us sugarcane and cactus had also brought us a third item, the birch sapling. Since we can't get bamboo or the nether trees, there are only 8 different wood types we can unlock, and birch is our 4th. So I'm really looking forward to working with the birch wood over the next 10 days. But before we got into another play session, Hobby and I decided to catch up on our favorite anime together.
Dedicated CPU cores, affordability, power. Mogswamp, the king of Superflat, attained this and everything else that Minecraft server hosting has to offer.
You want my server host? You can have it. I left everything all on Bloom Host. Now you just have to click the link.
These words lured many to surf the net and chase their dreams of hosting lightning-fast servers with advanced and efficient incremental backups. Mogswamp's claim of free subdomains, a built-in reverse proxy system, a free dedicated IP, and more, it seemed too good to be true. And yet the unique ability to create multiple servers with just a single plan was too tantalizing for any Minecrafter to ignore. The world has unquestionably entered the great age of high-performance Minecraft server hosting with 99.99% uptime and DDoS protection.
So go on, free yourself from overpriced, underpowered server hosting. Take to the pinned comment and click the link. And don't forget to use code MOG25 for 25% off your first month.
After quickly binging all 1,000 episodes, we were finally ready to get back to playing. On day 411, I carefully finished upgrading the drop chute and then began working on a staircase to connect the farm area behind the north wing to the sugarcane cliffs. After admiring my hard work, Hobby spent the whole day in the dirt mines. We want to build up a big soil surplus so we can do some sizable terraforming projects in this episode. I made some big expansions to our sugarcane field and it was starting to grow at an exponential rate. We both continued on the next day. I expanded the sugarcane farm a whole bunch more and Hobby kept mining dirt and breeding our pigs. Hobby was a little upset when he found that one of the villagers in our auto crop farm had managed to escape his spot in the middle, but I quickly got him back into place. Hobby then calmed down and subsequently began to explain the intricacies of YugiTube to me, which is apparently what they call the Yu-Gi-Oh section of YouTube.
I know about the YugiTube space.
You're tapped into the YugiTubers, the YugiTube economy. Fascinating stuff. Afterwards, while he was digging dirt, Hobby accidentally almost let our cows out.
They're cows, no. I'm digging underneath and I found the cow pit.
No!
Not let the cows moo out.
Who let the cows moo out? I was getting so sick of seeing slimes in the sugarcane fields that I decided to spray down some Spruce slab pesticide that Hobby kindly brought me. Hopefully this stuff works. Hobby kept digging the next day and spotted the hide-and-seek champion underneath our iron farm. He's a zombie that had driven us crazy back around day 245 when we spent way too long looking for the source of growling in Hobby's base. That guy, is he still alive?
Yeah, he's chilling.
We both hoped the hide-and-seek mafia wouldn't get angry with us as I finished up expanding the sugarcane farm. With the sugarcane cliffs finally finished, on day 415 I shifted my attention to the birch wood we had acquired. I began farming heaps of birch wood while Hobby went back to working on enchanting a perfect set of tools for me. He decided to come up with unique names for each one as a surprise. I continued collecting birch wood until Hobby delivered me the finished tools the following day.
Oh, Mr. Mog.
Yeah?
I have your new things.
Divine Sunderer, Stride Breaker, Void Staff, Night Harvester.
Are these like Yu-Gi-Oh cards or something?
Worse.
What are they?
Take a guess.
I don't know. Are they LOL? Are they
Yes.
LOL? No!
They're low items.
They're LOL items. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Hobby had a fun time predicting the comments on this video just to torture me.
Does Mog play League of Legends? Does Mog play League of Legends? Mog should play League of Legends with Hobby. Where'd you find this kid, Mog? Well, he was having a crippling league addiction. Picked him off the street.
Rescued him.
Alright, it's nighttime. You wanna call it?
Hobby and I wrapped up our play session and logged off, and somehow time just got away from us. We both got super busy, and suddenly it had been 60 IRL days before we had logged on. So we both needed a minute to get our bearings. Okay, so Just gotta remember what we're doing. Hobby eased back into things by collecting some wood while I used our tulip farm to grab some pink tulips. Afterwards, I kind of just ran around aimlessly while Hobby and I discussed some plans for the world. Hobby had spent those 60 long days doing some research into structuralist superflat technology, and he had 3 major breakthroughs. The first of which is an idea for how we can potentially get a raid farm working, which would be our best source of both redstone and glowstone. Having more redstone would finally allow us to take on some more ambitious redstone contraptions. Without stone to get pistons, repeaters, comparators, and observers, our redstone capabilities are quite limited, but we might just have a few tricks up our sleeve. So on day 418, Hobby began collecting materials for the raid farm while I went back to gathering up birchwood. I want to use the birchwood to create a beautiful beach, since we can't duplicate the few sand blocks we have gotten from Wandy T without an end portal. So much like we have rock wool, now we have sandalwood. At the end of the day, I tried using the sandalwood to create a small island around the tulip farm gazebo. It was great practice for doing a bigger beach, and I actually really liked how it was coming out. I finished up Tulip Island the next day, and after trading to get glass for the raid farm, Hobby came by to see how convincing the birch is as sand.
Oh yeah, it works for a beach.
He also showed me where the raid farm's gonna be.
Going that way, and then past the water there.
Okay.
And it's going to be a center of a new perimeter.
Hobby and I said goodbye, and he set out in his boat to begin construction on the raid farm. The next day, I decided to visit the seaweed bar for no real reason. Sometimes it's just so relaxing to farm the kelp here. It just really mellows me out, you know? Meanwhile, Hobby prepared the area for the raid farm by expanding the water perimeter. Then he began building a glass tube for a minecart elevator to get up to the farm. We can't get elytras or get soul sand for a water elevator or even get pistons for a piston elevator, so I think this minecart elevator is actually the best way to go upwards. Now that is some old school Minecraft technology. While I was using the wood farm, I couldn't help but notice that the sides of the building near the staircases up to the museum promenade just looked meh. So I went through with some trapdoors and buttons and tried to make everything look much more finished. Since eventually we want to fill in the museum with all the items, a big goal of mine for this episode is making sure the exterior of the building is completely finished. Once again, 10 days had passed, but with such a massive real-life break halfway through, it had felt quite disjointed. That being said, with Hobby working on the raid farm, we were both just so excited to play. Hobby continued constructing the minecart elevator on day 421. Meanwhile, I really wanted to find a way to give our beacon some support since they were kind of just floating there. So I began constructing a foundation beneath the beacon with white wool walls to match the rest of the structure. I added in some windows as well as some wood detailing before moving on to the other side. When night fell, phantoms started swarming Hobby and knocked him off his glass elevator. So the two of us decided to go to sleep to get rid of the night terrors. The next morning, I nearly completed the second beacon building with just a bit of wood detailing left unfinished. So I headed over to the storage room to grab the final supplies needed to complete it. Meanwhile, having finished his minecart elevator, Hobby began building the drop chute for the villagers. By the next day, Hobby was ready to build the main part of the raid farm, which is a design by Vinegar358. He made a tutorial so good that ENXO4 himself commented, "Great job." Hobby switched on an overlay of the farm using the Lightmatica mod to make sure everything would be placed correctly.
Do some precise bow placement.
While Hobby finished constructing the raid farm, I grabbed all of our birchwood and finally got started on making a big beach near the sugarcane farm. The tulip gazebo had been great practice, and I was feeling pretty good about the results.
I think this is done.
The raid farm?
Yeah.
Nice. In order to initiate the raid farm, we need to get the bad omen status effect, which means we need to wait for a pillager patrol to spawn somewhere. We hadn't really seen any around our base though, so Hobby wasn't sure quite what to do. But unfortunately, I was too busy dealing with another Mog farm to help him out.
Maybe should I FK for this patrol to spawn? Should I do it? What should we do about this?
Dude, the mobs, I can't. We ended up just going to sleep to kill off the mobs, and it's a good thing we did because we have a lot of villagers around our base. Oh god, they're going towards the villagers. Stop. Please. Once I was done doing pest control, I realized that I had left some dark spots on the inside of the beacon building. So I took on the hazardous job of lighting things up. Hobby sailed back to our base and decided to start resetting librarians to try to get the sweeping edge enchantment. We're gonna need that on our swords in order to use the raid farm properly. I went to add some support to the two sides of the iron golem farm that were floating to give the building some structure. But I didn't realize that the farm had actually broken in the newest update, meaning we'd eventually have to make a new one anyhow. While I was working on that, I think Hobby was having a little too much fun getting some new librarian villagers.
Oh man, that villager mysteriously disappeared. My friend told me I was waterboarding the villagers.
After wrapping up at the iron golem farm, I headed to the beach to check if I had lit everything up properly. I think it's all good now. No, I hear a zombie. He must be like under something.
Found him.
This zombie was no hide-and-seek champion, but it did seem like he was probably a part of the hide-and-seek mafia. We must have angered them on day 414 when Hobby was digging all that dirt. Hopefully, Hobby doesn't have a horse head waiting for him in his hobbit hole. The next morning, Hobby returned his attention to resetting for sweeping edge, while I placed a bunch more dirt to build up the island's coastline over by our tree farm. Hobby's villager was refusing to get a job.
Oh man, this is frustrating me. Oh boy, my guy is right in front of you.
But once it started raining, the villager quickly realized he needed to work to earn the roof over his head.
He keeps giving me sweeping edge 1. He's trolling me.
I moved to the area near our angry pig to continue placing dirt until the end of the night, and Hobby took a break from resetting to harvest some sugarcane. The next day, I returned to the beach to continue building the coastline, and Hobby went back to resetting our librarians.
I'm just rolling.
Yep, I'm just building this beach. I'm just kind of like building random organic shapes. I hope you like it.
I like everything you do.
Aww.
After that wholesome moment, Hobby and I decided we needed to make things even more cute.
Drop and give me 30 uwus!
Hobby managed to find an Unbreaking 3 trade that was like half the price of our current one, so he decided to lock in the trade and send the old villager to Hobtonimo Bay. Then he relocated the bell on Pig Pit Pass into Pig Pit Park to try and encourage wandering traders to find their way to the center of our base. I was feeling super happy with my beach, but I wanted to wrap around the entire museum. And in order to do that, I need to actually finish the museum exterior at some point. But that's a problem for another day. And speaking of another day, on day 27, I realized that some details were missing from the roof of the north wing, so I made it match the other side. Meanwhile, Hobby was having a hard time getting his villagers to cooperate again.
Suffering.
But once he actually started resetting, his luck turned around.
Ooh, that's good. I just got us a sharpness 5 trade for 20 emeralds.
Yo! I went to our base to grab some moss and lots of bone meal, and then I began spreading the moss to beautify the dirt near the tree farm. Next, I went through and put lanterns underneath some of the moss carpets to spawn-proof everything. I used the mini HUD mod in order to see the light levels on the ground, which is so helpful for this sort of thing. Because everything around our base is completely spawn-proof with water, if a single spot is dark, it always immediately fills up with mobs, as we've seen time and time again. Hey, at least I'm learning.
This guy just gave me a Silk Touch book for 6 emeralds now. So I can give her the other Silk Touch guy.
But then Hobby found something even more rare.
The Sharpness 5 book for 64 emeralds. Oh my god. It's a rip off my guy. Wait, 20 emeralds for Sharpness 5 and 64 emeralds for Sharpness 5 on the same dude.
Same dude? That's actually pretty rare.
And now he gives a Sharpness 1 book.
That's crazy, actually.
Who is this guy?
The Sharpener.
Sadly, the Sharpener's last trade was for Frostwalker, but I still think he's a pretty sharp guy. Any way you slice it, he still has his pointed humor and cutting remarks, not to mention those eyes like daggers. When night fell, Hobby and I finally realized that our iron farm was broken in 1.20.4. So we talked about some options for a replacement, but we didn't really settle on a design. The next day, I grabbed some brown wool and then farmed some podzol to create a nice muddy transition from the snow area on the south of our island to the grassier area by the tree farm. Hobby was still trying for sweeping edge, but without much luck. That evening, the two of us decided to get together to collaborate on a new project, a horse highway. See, we need to get that pillager patrol to spawn, but there just aren't many places for them to spawn around our base. So we figure if we can come up with a time-consuming project to do out in the no man's land past our ocean, hopefully the pillagers will appear. Before we decide exactly what project we're gonna do out there, we're first digging this tunnel for our horses so we can get out there fast without needing a boat. We continued working on the entrance to the horse highway through the night and into the next day. We started putting in a glass ceiling and trying to plan out some sort of carpet design to cover up the bedrock. Just as dusk was approaching, we received a visit from our dear friend Wandy T. He had sea pickles and more coral, so we bought what we could. It was sad not to get a new tree type, but at this point, we're used to it. I needed to repair my axe to do some more wood chopping, so I headed to Noisy Caverns to start trading string. Then we worked on the horse tunnel for pretty much the entirety of day 430. Hobby continued his carpet pattern, and then he traded for a buttload of glass once he ran out of carpets. I was working on collecting spruce wood and placing in all the wood for the tunnels. We were both working so hard that before we knew it, another day had gone by, and we had once again reached a 10-day checkpoint. With the raid farm finished, we were feeling so close to being unstoppable in this world. We just needed to get that pillager patrol. So on day 431, we continued working hard on the tunnel to Water's End. Once we reached the end with the spruce log trim, we started digging out the dirt and deliberating on a design together. We want something that looks nice, is easy to build, and won't kill our horses.
What other walls can we do? Cobble?
Funny one.
So after trying out tons of different design options, we finally settled on one we both liked, and I started grabbing more spruce wood to get the job done. I spent the evening filling in the wall pattern while Hobby began working on the pig-proof, horse-accessible entrance to the tunnel. After all, we wouldn't want the Pig Pit Park potato patch pigs prowling the passages promised to our horses. Anyways, while Hobby was digging the entrance, he got caught off guard.
Oh, the random cod. I should save it.
He was even rewarded for his good deed with an advancement.
Tactical fishing.
Hobby decided to put our new friend, the Codfather, into Pufferfish Fountain. The Codfather immediately embraced his role as part of the fountain itself with great fervor. Inspiring stuff. I collected some carpets and continued the pattern down the tunnel until I ran out, after which Hobby and I joined forces to further improve the entrance. While digging out the dirt, I came upon an Enderman who appeared to have been hiding out in this room with some villagers for ages.
What is he doing? You can teleport, bro. Did no one tell him?
I encased the room with glass because if I remember correctly, these are some of the first villagers in our whole world. After converting our first 2 villagers and breeding them, we moved some of their children into a very rudimentary iron golem farm on day 84. Then on day 122, after we had made a new iron golem farm, I moved the villagers into this small space under Pig Pit Pass. Later, on day 142, we moved some of them into the villager breeder under the museum, but a few got left behind. So these guys are like the last remaining confirmed original children from our founding villagers. Man, you could probably write an entire history book about this world. I went to chop wood and contemplate days of yore, while Hobby experimented with creating some sort of low-tech horse stables so we won't have to tangle with leads. Eventually, he remembered this old strategy used by Endy123, whose Minecraft forum post from July 2015 is the entire inspiration for Hobby and I to do this challenge in the first place.
I use the technology from the legends of old.
Endy123, if you're out there, I want to say thank you for inspiring me to do one of the most fun challenges ever and causing me and Hobby to become such close friends. I wrapped up the day by using the wood I gathered to continue extending the pattern down the tunnel. As we passed into day 434, Hobby came up with an awesome way to improve the entrance to our tunnel.
I can put rails actually in front of the entrance and pigs won't walk.
Oh, that's smart.
I ran out of logs when I reached Water's End, and I was forced to head back to resupply. Just then, Wandy T chose to once again grace us with his wares.
Hey, another trader. Yeah, it's red sand, beetroot, moss, fire coral. Oof.
The lackluster trades were a bummer, but we're only a third of the way through these 100 days, so there's plenty of time for Wandy T to restock and return with some true treasures. After shopping, Hobby continued decorating the entrance while I collected some wood. Then I returned to the tunnel to continue extending the pattern for the remainder of the day. Meanwhile, Hobby spent the night at the tree farm gathering even more wood, and he made a disturbing discovery.
Why are there mobs spawning on... Oh. I saw zombies spawning in a windowsill. Okay, that needs to be lit up.
I realized that mobs had also begun to spawn on the cross beams I had installed in the glass ceiling of the horse tunnel. So Hobby and I went to bed to clear the mobs, and I spent the next morning mob-proofing all of the windowsills with carpet and putting trapdoors down on the cross beams. After that, I went back to constructing the tunnel while Hobby collected gray wool to use as a carpet for the on-ramp to the highway. Or should I call it the horsey hold room?
I finished the horsey hold room.
I was getting pretty close to finishing the tunnel walls, but my wood supply had once again run dry. Instead of collecting more wood, Hobby and I both decided to take a break from the horse tunnels and get some other stuff done. But first, Hobby wanted me to pay my respects to the Codfather.
Hey, look in the top of it. Look at my fish. Just stuck there.
What? How did you do that?
In between sessions, Hobby referenced a few different videos to design a water flushing mob farm that's actually possible in structureless Superflat. The design is insane, and he wants to build it ASAP, so we have to figure out what's gonna happen with the old mob farm and where the new one should go. After some extensive discussion, we both decided it would be for the best to tear down the old mob farm altogether, as it was really quite an eyesore in the middle of our base. I was a bit sad that my rainbow glass chute was already being demolished, but honestly, we've built and destroyed stuff so many times in this world that I'm used to it. It looked like Hobby was having so much fun destroying the old farm, and I got a bit jealous. So I decided to take down the old railroad bridges since we're really not using the villager breeder in the museum any longer.
Oh, I think I can get this done in a day or two. Oh, and this is where I die.
No! This was only Hobby's second death in the series, but at this point we've both died enough that we kinda stopped caring.
I gave him the chop, and this gave me the flop.
I repurposed the center section of the railroad bridges into some cute little pergolas for each side of the base, which I think look much better. Hobby was finishing taking down the mob farm on day 437 when he made a realization.
This mob farm has claimed both their lives. It has to go.
It's the killer mob farm, dude.
We are mobs.
Mogswamp and Mobby.
We both took a quick break to grab snacks, and we realized that Hobby had grabbed an orange and I grabbed orange juice. I guess we were just really in sync that night. I grabbed some spruce wood and crafted a bunch of trapdoors to place along the edge of the promenade wall in front of the museum. Then a stinky griefer appeared, and I guess he wanted to hop on the orange trend because he picked up one of my orange tulips.
Ugh, Enderman with a freaking... I'm so sick of these guys, I could scream. He stole my tulip. Oh my god, he's gonna kill me. I forgot. Oh my god.
Oh.
In my blind rage, I had totally forgotten that an Enderman can easily kill me in this world. We haven't managed to get diamond armor for mobs, so we're stuck with crappy iron protection. The back-to-back deaths definitely shook us up a bit, but Hobby was almost finished destroying the mob farm. All he had left was the glass drop chute, and he'd be safely back down on the ground. So he spent the next morning taking down the chute while I gathered wood. I then used the wood to make the circular gate in front of the museum double-sided. It looks a lot better with the pattern actually copied onto the backside. Plus, without the big ugly mob farm, the view from here is 10 times better. Hobby began collecting the materials for the new mob farm while I embarked on a new venture. I want to put a roof over the second layer of the trading hall where we can expand the promenade park to include some seating. So I started by placing alternating rows of spruce logs and slabs to create the roof. While I gathered more wood, I decided to check in and see what Hobby was up to.
Did you get your campfires yet? What have you been doing?
Eating cottage cheese.
You just eating cottage cheese? I continued chopping wood until a thunderous clap sent both me and Hobby racing towards our giant angry pig. We began herding as many pigs as possible into the lightning chamber. After being struck, the zombie pigmen sink to the bottom of the farm, allowing us to refill the chamber with even more pigs. We definitely learned some things about our design to tweak for next time, but in general, the setup was a huge success. Hobby was able to use his looting 3 sword to get 26 ingots and 7 nuggets. That's a pretty insane haul for just one thunderstorm. Dude, we finally did it. We finally were prepared for a thunderstorm. I'm proud of us.
Yeah.
I went off to go chop down more trees while Hobby stuck around to breed the few pigs left over to replenish our herd for the next storm. After breeding the pigs, Hobby ran into an invisible Wandy T. Unfortunately, once again, we didn't get a new wood type, but we were happy to get some ferns, and the pink coral is great for decorating. We also bought glowstone since the only other way we can get it is by gathering glowstone dust from witches, which is quite a slow process. After saying goodbye to Wandy T, Hobby returned to gathering resources for his new mob farm while I finished off the roof over the trading hall. We had made crazy progress in 10 days. Between creating the new horse highway, taking down the old mob farm, and expanding Promenade Park, it really had been a flurry of activity. But we kept pace the next day as Hobby was finally able to finish up his resource chest for the new mob farm.
Okay. I'm all set for my journey.
We decided that we want the new mob farm to go behind the waterfall area towards spawn. Eventually, we can build a giant mountain out of wool to conceal the farm. With that decided, Hobby started carrying all of the resources over to the build site, having to take multiple trips to get everything. If only we had some sort of creature, something that could speed up our travel and give us more inventory slots to carry things. I almost feel like we're forgetting something that could help us. Oh well. While Hobby went back and forth, I ran around doing some chores like organizing chests, crafting myself some new armor, and shearing sheep for white wool. At the end of the day, I decided to remove the 2 lanterns on each side of the trading hall and replace them with some towers. Construction of the new mob farm officially kicked off on day 442. The design is an adaptation of a flushing mob farm showcased by Il Mango that utilizes a single source block of water to flush all the mobs. Hobby began by laying down the hoppers for the item collection. Way on the other side of the base, I was building up the 2 towers to replace those lanterns. But we decided to go to bed so that the mobs wouldn't terrorize Hobby while he's building. However, that does mean we sacrifice about 10 minutes of the day. And if we want to accomplish all of our goals for this episode, we have to be selective about which nights we choose to sleep through. The following day, Hobby made significant progress on the mob farm, outlining the bottom layer where the mobs will be flushed towards the center. Meanwhile, I finished up the 2 new towers and was thrilled with how they came out. They fit the theme of our base perfectly. Later on, Hobby came down to grab more resources and joined me to admire the new towers together.
Oh.
I could already see the new mob farm coming together on the horizon. The following day, Hobby once again ascended to work on the farm while I laid out a charming little picnic blanket in the Promenade Park. I also added some nice tables and chairs to the rooftop deck to enhance its friendly aura. By day 445, Hobby had finished up the funnel platform of the farm and moved on to creating the spawn platforms. While he laid those out, I went on a scavenger hunt through our base to grab a bunch of materials to use for decorating. I began filling in all the details in Promenade Park and continued to do so the following day while Hobby built another 3 spawning platforms. I also grabbed a bunch of colorful wool from our sheep farm to craft into beds. I'm creating colorful bedbrellas to provide some shade.
Eating slabs. I'm eating through all of them. My favorite snack.
Yum, yum, yum.
Slabby patties.
I finished up all my bedbrellas the next morning and then spent the afternoon chopping wood and grabbing some oak leaves. Hobby did another 2 layers on the farm, meaning he only had a few more layers to go before reaching the top. We're both so excited to see just how fast we can make a mob farm in a world that started with nothing but dirt. Hobby climbed down from the farm to grab some more slabs and decided to put his pickaxe away to free up another inventory slot. And he definitely 100% wouldn't forget that his pickaxe was in this chest. For sure. I continued adding more and more details to Promenade Park, and it was starting to truly spring to life. Even though it's just Hobby and me in this world, adding all of these tables and chairs really makes things feel vibrant. Hobby continued working on the spawn platforms all day, and by nightfall, he had finally reached the last spawning layer.
Wanna sleep?
Sure. I'll test out one of the bedbrellas. Wow, what a nice place to sleep. The next day, Hobby was able to begin outlining the roof for the farm. The roof creates enough darkness for the mobs to start spawning, and I think it also helps with pack spawning or something.
Oh, I should light the blocks down there too before I do this roof.
While Hobby was working on finishing up the mob farm, I placed down some coral in the water so that I could farm some sea pickles for decoration. I placed the sea pickles down as well as a tasty cake, and then I headed to the cow farm to grab some leather. I used the leather to make some item frames. You can make these look like plates for food by putting down birch pressure plates on top. I wrapped up the day by building a little picnic table. But before I could finish, Hobby stopped by to borrow some more spruce logs from me, and he got to see my progress. We both jumped into bedbrella, and when we woke up, it was day 450, halfway through the 100 days.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Yep, nice and rested to finish this today.
But as Hobby climbed up to his mob farm, it became clear that finishing the farm today would be a major challenge.
Oh, God. That's a bunch of mobs. I'm fighting for my life.
Careful. Aww. That's one death destroying the old mob farm and one death making the new one. This project was proving to be quite lethal.
These mob spawners are dangerous.
I spent my morning wrapping up with some final details in the Promenade Park. But after Hobby died, I quickly ran over to my bee cave to grab some honeycomb for crafting beehives. That way I'd be close by if Hobby needed my help.
Oh, the mob decided to drop down with them? Oh my god. What? Creeper blew up. I'm abandoning shit. Oh my god. Alright, I think I just need to put a hole in the mob roof. I can't beat all these guys. Okay, the farm should be flooded and turned off. Oh, that was stressful.
Hobby spent the night creating the boat clock that controls the flushing mechanism. He adapted it from this video by Julian Guillaume, which showcases the general mechanics of making a boat-based toggle clock. A user named Laupig in my Discord even came up with an alternate boat timer design that only uses a single redstone torch. So it looks like there are ways to do this way more efficiently than we did. While Hobby built the clock, I took advantage of the darkness to make sure everything in Promenade Park was lit up with hidden lighting.
I can't put in the boat clock yet because I have to put in the water flushing down there. Would you want to help get rid of those guys down there with me?
I said, say less, and raced to Hobby's rescue, picking off mobs one at a time for him like a true hero. Oh, wow.
Oh.
Shockingly, another 10 days had passed, putting us halfway through this challenge. The mob farm was so close to being done, but the very fate of the farm was now hanging in jeopardy.
It's okay, I'll defuse the bomb.
Creeper damage was the least of our worries. With the thunderstorm still raging on, the risk of the wooden mob farm burning down was very real. Hobby grew very worried that his hard work would be destroyed in the storm.
Should definitely get more lightning rods though, so this mob farm doesn't burn down. Yeah, I am actually really scared of this game on fire. I keep hearing lightning right next to me.
Hobby suggested sleeping, but since we had just passed into day 451, that would mean losing an entire day of progress.
It burns, I guess.
He started placing all of the water streams on the lower platform, which will force the mobs towards the center collection point. Meanwhile, I started working on filling in the empty garden plots on the promenade. I began by placing some slabs and waterlogging them so I can make some nice coral arrangements. There's really not much else to do with the coral from Monty T, so I wanted to finally use it for something.
The storm's gone.
Yay!
Alright, Mog. It's almost time.
For what?
The mob drops.
I need to go over there anyways to grab some flowers, so I'll start heading over in a sec.
All that was left was to place the boat into the water timer and the farm would start up.
Okay, I'm gonna place it in now. There he goes. Making my way out of there. Why is it not activating? Oh, I know why. I'm a dummy. Okay, so mobs are gonna spawn now, as you can see.
Whoa. Bruh. That thing's hardcore. Jeez, dude. That's insane.
What I spent time working on.
After observing the farm for a while, we noted that the collection at the bottom would need to be widened slightly, but otherwise the farm was incredible. I headed to the flower farm to grab the flowers I needed for my gardens, while Hobby watched the sun rise on his beautiful creation. Hobby went back to the base to grab some redstone so that we can filter the hoppers to pick it up whenever it drops. We don't have much of a need for most of the mob drops, but stuff like redstone and glowstone dust from witches is super rare and extremely valuable to us. We still haven't seen pillagers to grant us the bad omen effect we need to start the raid farm. But even when the raid farm is functional and we can use it to farm redstone, it'll be an active process. But our new mob farm will passively be collecting those drops whenever we're close by enough for mobs to spawn. By using a spherical overlay in the mini HUD mod, Hobby was able to confirm that the mob farm will be active right up to the edge of the sheep farms. Over by the museum, I spent the entire day tending to my new gardens, meticulously scrutinizing the placement of each and every flower. I needed to visit the tulip gazebo in order to get the last few bulbs into place, but shortly after, the gardens were looking finished.
All right, these flower arrangements are looking sweet, dude.
I'll go check it out.
Hobby was impressed and all, but I could tell he was still so proud of his mob farm that it was all he could think about. Can you blame him? With the mob farm finished, Hobby decided to return to trying to get the sweeping edge enchantment we need for our raid farm sword. Even when we do manage to get Bad Omen, we still need the sweeping edge sword for the farm to work effectively. While Hobby rolled the dice, I took the opportunity to farm a bunch of birch, gearing up to continue my work on the coastline beach area.
Okay, I'm gonna breed the pigs. I'm getting a little tilted right now.
Hobby cooled his tempers in the pig pen, and I headed over to Noisy Caverns to purchase some campfires from the many fishermen in the trading hall. I broke down the campfires to get coal for torches, which I then crafted into lanterns with iron from the iron farm. But then I remembered I could have just bought the lanterns directly from the librarian villagers. Why do I always do things the hard way? Hobby went back to fishing for the sweeping edge trade, and I used my lanterns to hide lighting around the base so that we can get rid of the torch spam. If I'm being honest, I think every Ethos Lab fan has this same exact impulse.
Oh, I got it. Finally.
Hobby couldn't lock in the trade because he didn't have the emeralds ready, but after a quick harvest at Sugarcane Cliffs, he was able to sell enough paper to afford the trade.
Okay, Sweeping Edge book. Finally can purchase.
I put in a bit of work on the beach, and before long, the sun had risen once more.
I got my sword fully done.
With the sword finished, we just needed bad omens, so Hobby turned his attention back to our horse highway. We're both hoping that while he finishes the tunnel's decorations, a pillager patrol will have the chance to spawn at Water's Edge. I spent my day working on a tropical cliff to connect the museum down to the beach. I decided that this cliffside beach would be the perfect place for a cactus farm, so I began laying it out the next morning. I stopped by the sheep farms to grab more rock wool, and then I grabbed the stack of sand we've gotten from Wandy T. I laid out the sand in a grid pattern, and then I planted the cactus we have so far. We're gonna need these to grow before we can actually get a cactus in each spot. Hobby was still working on finishing off the horse highway's decorations when he finally realized that something was missing.
I don't have my pickaxe? Wow.
Where'd you put it?
I don't know. I'm gonna go back and grab it.
But after searching through the night and into the next day, it wasn't looking good.
I'm gonna have to make a new pick.
But instead of fixing his pig situation, Hobby got distracted when he found Dripstone and one of the many random chest monsters he leaves scattered all around our base. He started building a Dripstone farm in Noisy Caverns, and he came upon something quite mysterious.
I found your secret sign.
I don't even remember that.
Random sign like in a corner.
What? Where?
Right over here. Let me take a screenshot.
What? I don't remember that at all. Are you sure you didn't do that?
I didn't do that.
Oh my gosh, I literally have no recollection of making that. And so, as I continued working on the cactus farm, I couldn't help but think of a certain legend named Herobrine. If only there was a clearer sign. But alas, we have 0 time. Sorry, but it wouldn't be the Just Dirt series if you didn't hear a rhyme. Luckily, before I could fit in more bad poetry, Wandy T showed up to save the day and my audience retention graph. Unfortunately, he let us down once again with a bad batch of trades. Blue orchids, bucket of pufferfish. That's about it.
Another disappointment.
At this rate, it's looking like it's gonna take forever for us to get all the items we need to fill in our museum. Still, nothing could shake my affection for the robed traveler. All right, I put the blue orchids in our plant chest. It was good to see Wandy T. I like that guy. I returned to the cactus farm to start working on the collection area. I tried to make it look like a little beachside cave, and I did my best to make the water stream and hopper collection look as natural as possible so it wouldn't stand out. After successfully testing out the water streams, I was ready to call the farm finished. Yay, the cactus farm's working. While I had been finishing the cactus farm, Hobby was reading the Minecraft wiki article for dripstone. Apparently, in order to grow, they need to hang on dripstone blocks with water above. So he converted some of our extra dripstone into blocks and left the farm to grow over time. He then turned his attention to expanding the drop chute for the piglins. We noticed during the last thunderstorm that we got very close to losing piglins from entity cramming. If more than 24 mobs occupy a 1x1 space, they take suffocation damage. And we want to make sure we're killing every single piglin with looting to get the most gold possible. As Hobby widened out the chute, I was nearby at the cactus farm, continuing to blend the farm into the surrounding cliffs. After finishing the improvements, Hobby then bred our pigs again to ensure that we'd be ready for the next lightning strike. The next morning, while attempting murder, Hobby's aim was a bit shaky.
No, shot a pig. Rip that pig. I'll make it up to them. Here, I take life, I give it life.
Afterwards, he finally went to continue working on the horse tunnel. Losing that pickaxe had gotten him quite sidetracked. Back over at the cactus farm, I checked the collection barrel and I realized I had enough cactus to fill in all the spots for the farm. I don't really know what to use this cactus for since we can't smelt it into dye, but I suppose we can use it to break boats or minecarts, or use it to make a trash bin since we can't get lava. Next, I wanted to construct some palm trees along the coastline, so I used some of the brown dye we got from Wandy T to craft some brown glass panes. I'm gonna use these in a really creative way. You'll see. Then I chopped down more birch wood to use on the beach and gathered some azalea leaves to use for the palm tree fronds. Lastly, I needed a bit of moss, so I grabbed a block and then began spreading it around on top of the cactus farm with bone meal. This also gave me a good opportunity to make sure everything was lit up by hiding lanterns underneath the moss carpets again. The next day, I was eager to start building my palm tree. I used the brown glass panes to connect to the mud brick walls, allowing me to achieve a much more fluid and organic shape for the trunk. Then I built the tree's canopy, making sure to put carpets on all of the moss blocks to prevent mob spawns. After getting rid of my dirt scaffolding, I stepped back to take in the result.
what a big difference. This went from a boring shore to a tropical paradise with one little tree. I spent the rest of my night organizing the chests in our storage room. Hobby finished the entire horse tunnel, floor, walls, and ceiling. After that, he checked on our dripstone, bred our pigs, and chopped some wood. The next morning, Hobby did a bit of trading to get some emeralds, and I took a break from organizing to plant cacti along my beach for a touch of greenery. After all, they're not good for much else. Meanwhile, Hobby couldn't shake the ghostly memory of his lost pickaxe.
Still want to find this pickaxe.
He decided he needed a vacation to try to get his mind off it.
I'm gonna go look at your beach.
Hope you like it. Adding some tiki torches right now.
After finishing up the beach tour, the two of us headed back to our storage room, and I continued to organize all of the chests. Day 60 was now behind us, and although we achieved much in the past 10 days, we were no closer to getting that elusive bad omen effect. So on the morning of day 461, Hobby set out in a boat, embarking on a brand new project in the slime-infested flatlands. We're gonna try to build a passive mob farm, a rare sight these days. By removing all of the grass and mobs from our spawn chunks and ensuring there's no grass nearby for passive mobs to spawn on, we can create a farm that automatically collects drops from cows, sheep, pigs, chicken, horses, and donkeys. That's a lot of different items. This has been a goal of ours since the series began. We were both inspired by Ethos Lab's passive mob farm from his first Let's Play series. Oh boy, multiple Etho mentions in one episode? I really am an Etho girl, aren't I?
It's been forever since in our world that I just like went into regular flatland.
The first step in building our passive mob farm was to eliminate the slimes to ensure work could be carried out safely. So Hobby began converting all of the grass within the slime chunks to path blocks. Back on the island, I sheared a bunch of sheep to gather more rock wool for my terraforming mission. Before I can fill in the museum, I need to finish the exterior, so I'll be focusing on this for quite some time. Hobby began to outline a 7x7 chunk perimeter with spruce wood. Within this perimeter, we're going to clear away all of the grass so that passive mobs can't spawn, but wandering traders can. Since traders spawn within 4 chunks of a player, we can stand in the middle of the perimeter and have as many spaces as possible for the trader to appear while still running the passive mob farm in the background. Plus, while Hobby is constructing the perimeter, there should be ample time for pillager patrols to show up. But as the horizon grew dusky, we were forced to call it a night, as Hobby hadn't yet lit everything up. When I awoke on day 462, I hunkered down in the dirt mines to collect as much dirt as I could carry to use on Museum Mountain. The cool temperature of the bedrock beneath me provided a welcome respite from concocting cliffs under the beating sun. But before long, it was back to the cliffside, and Hobby found himself on a voyage back to the island to grab more wood. By the way, Hobby and I have just been calling it the island, but we should probably name it. Just Dirt Island is a little too on the nose, so maybe you guys can help us come up with ideas. Anyhow, I was shearing the sheep as night fell and realized that the newborn cliffs were not yet lit up, so we slept to pass the night and avoid any major mog spawner mishaps. The next morning, Hobby departed for the flatlands once again. I watched him float into the distance before turning my attention to chopping birch wood in preparation for another beach on this side. Eventually, I began placing in the sandalwood as my partner in crime began scheming. He devised a clever technique to rapidly remove the grass in his perimeter. Upon growing 2x2 spruce trees, large patches of grass below instantly transform into podzol. By utilizing this method, he believes he can clear the grass much more quickly and efficiently. Before we could test his hypothesis, we were blessed with another visit from the RNG god himself.
Wandy T spawned in.
But our misfortune continued.
He's got sand and red sand and blue ice.
Can always take more of that.
After a quick night's sleep to prevent mobs from harassing Hobby, I purchased the sand and ice from the trader and returned to my job of beach. Hobby placed a bunch of 2x2 trees spaced evenly apart in order to test out his new method. But before he got the chance to bone meal any of them, we finally got what we'd been waiting for.
Oh, pillage patrol, pillage patrol.
No way!
After 40 long days of waiting, the pillagers had finally arrived. The moment to activate our raid farm was here at last. Hobby killed the banner pillager and activated the bad omen effect.
This lasts for an hour and 40 minutes.
Now that Hobby had the effect, he wouldn't be able to return to our island without starting a raid. So it was up to me to do the final step of getting a villager into place at the raid farm.
So I need you to grab a villager that doesn't have a profession, and then I need you to boat it over. Oh, I'm so happy about that.
Me too. This is really great.
I fished a villager out of the villager breeder in Noisy Caverns, and after a bit of jostling, I managed to get him into a boat.
Just need one, right?
Yep, just need one.
After a short boat ride, I arrived at the raid farm with my captive. All right, so where does he go?
Inside the leaves, make sure you put the slabs in first.
And you want those where?
In front of it, inside the leaf cage. Yep, now you can put them in there.
I gently nudged the villager into his leafy cell, and with that, everything was primed.
Okay, this should be set. I'm gonna head over there.
As I headed back to the base, the anticipation was killing both of us.
Dude, this is exciting. This is the biggest thing that's happened to us in a while.
I'm super duper excited to see if this works.
While Hobby had been talking me through the villager placement protocol, his spruce trees had already begun to sprout.
It's a few blocks that aren't gonna be it, but it's a good amount.
Well, we'll have lots of wood from it, so.
Yup. And then we won't, because I know how fast wood goes in our series.
With night approaching, we both decided to go to sleep so there would be zero chance of mobs messing anything up. And I genuinely felt like a kid on Christmas Eve.
Oh, I'm so excited. Oh my god.
Hobby rode to the raid farm in the crisp morning air and the tensions were high.
My heart's racing.
I'm so nervous. Here we go.
Oh, it's starting.
Dude, this is crazy.
Oh, they're falling.
Oh my god. Dude!
I got the bad omen effect.
Dude! I can't believe it. A raid farm and structuralist Superflat. Infinite redstone, baby! Oh, I'm so happy right now.
Yeah, we got totems of undying now.
We have totems!
Yep. Now if I die, I'm fine. Oh yeah, after I do that, I just fall. I'm gonna break this boat down here. And then I just I gotta be quick, but I don't have to be perfect.
Hobby decided to spend the rest of the day using the raid farm. We're keeping emeralds, totems, redstone, and glowstone, and just getting rid of the rest of the items. While he used the farm, I was continuing to work on the terraforming around the museum. I want to get a sort of loose outline of how far the museum is going to extend, so I began sketching the backside of the cliffs. As we worked, we were both still buzzing with excitement for the rest of the day.
I'm big happy.
This is a huge breakthrough for the series, I feel like.
After checking his schematic for the passive mob farm design, Hobby realized we need about 4 stacks of redstone.
So this is gonna take a few days to farm up.
Hobby ended up getting charged by a Vex and had to abandon ship. But luckily, the farm has a failsafe mechanism, allowing the user to climb to the top, reapply the bad omen effect, and reinitiate the raid. The other great thing about this raid farm is that it gives us the hero of the village effect. That'll let us get some cool stuff like stone tools for filling out the museum. The next morning, I mined some more rock wool while Hobby continued to use the new raid farm.
32 redstone. It's wild.
When I sensed nighttime was approaching, I began to mossify the dirt I had placed on the cliff so far. This lets me go back through and hide lanterns under the moss carpet. As long as I'm careful to light everything up, I should be able to keep working throughout the night.
Wow.
No.
I can't believe it.
So yeah, it got darker a little faster than I anticipated and I was not able to light everything up. I somehow managed to slowly extract my items from the swarms of angry monsters, after which I admitted defeat and climbed into bed. Nevertheless, I woke up determined to light up all of my terraforming before nightfall. So I leapt out of bed and sprang into action, mossifying and mob-proofing all of my mistakes. I didn't even come close to finishing by the time the stars began to twinkle. But I quickly got down some placeholder torches where I'll eventually hide lighting as I continue to mossify the mountain. For Hobby, the whole day and night were a pure grind session for redstone. So he passed the time by catching up with me and discussing our remaining plans for the base. By the morning of day 468, the cliffs on the backside of the museum were really coming together. I pressed on and continued the grind of connecting all of my outlines together while Hobby remained locked in on collecting all of the redstone.
I'm just about done with this 3rd stack. Start my 4th one. How's terraforming going?
Really good. Got everything lit up. Everything's almost placed, just gotta moss everything, and then I just gotta do the beaches, so I'm grabbing some more birch right now.
But even after chopping what felt like a substantial number of birch trees, using the strip birch wood was expensive, and I chewed through everything that I had collected in no time. It became clear that a significant amount of birch mining was in my future. As we both continued our tasks the next day, the fatigue was beginning to set in. Luckily, the end was in sight for each of us.
Alright, 1 more stack to go.
But when a Vex caused him to flee again, Hobby needed to climb to the top of the farm to get the bad omen effect once more. Unfortunately, while doing so, he accidentally broke the boat and needed me to make a quick wood delivery.
Thank you.
While I was there, I snagged a totem to carry in my offhand just in case I get into trouble.
Okay. That is now fixed.
The next morning, I spotted a griefer with something of mine, and it felt personal.
Why is there an Enderman here with a cactus? Are you kidding me? Where did he take this from? Now I gotta figure out like where he stole the cactus from. Oh, and there's a Mog farm in here. I'm so mad that there's a Mog farm. Oh, they're attacking me. I have to ender pearl away. I'm running. They almost got me.
But after checking all of the cactus I planted on the beach and all of the cactus in the cactus farm, I couldn't find any missing.
Huh. I don't know where he got that cactus.
My morning was just not going my way, so I guess when I got back to the storage room, I was a bit short-tempered.
Oh my gosh. Why is this chest labeled for arrows full of random junk? Ugh.
Oh. Oh god.
My roommate drives me crazy.
They don't mean it. Okay, I promise.
In a past episode, I asked you guys whose bad habit was worse. My habit of creating accidental mob farms, or Hobby's habit of leaving random chests everywhere. Most of the comments seem to think my bad habit was worse. But to be fair to me, I always fix my Mog spawners pretty quickly. Hobby's hidden hordes are like a Hydra. You get rid of one and two more pop up in its place. I finished fixing all of the Mog spawners and Hobby finally reached 5 stacks of redstone. More than enough for the first few layers of the passive mob farm.
I'm level 100. 100 days. Now I can go home. I missed you, Mr. Mogswamp. I don't have a boat.
Uber for Hobby?
Uber.
Uber for Hobby? Oh, you said you didn't have a boat.
I made one. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So impatient. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating.
Time to put this randomly in a chest.
No.
Let's go.
No.
Ooh, there's wood in here. See, having chests everywhere, you can find random treasure. Isn't that magical?
No, it's
when you
not.
don't play for a while?
It's not magical at all. While the two of us bickered, another night passed, meaning we had made it 70% of the way through our journey. Although the past 10 days were extremely grindy, I was nearly done with my terraforming project, and Hobby had finally collected all of the redstone we needed. And so we awoke on day 471 feeling fantastic. Hobby still possessed the Hero of the Village effect, so he decided to jump on the opportunity to do some trading with the villagers and secure some fat discounts.
I'm a hero.
I spent the morning gathering rock wool and sandalwood, and when I got to the beach to start working, it began to rain. But I worked on a little cave area so that there'll be an entrance to the museum basement. We're thinking about building a new storage room somewhere down here.
Oh shoot, they're throwing fish at me. Thanks. I appreciate it.
The fish tossing is a promising sign. We don't really need the gifts from the fishermen, but similar gifts from the Fletchers and toolsmiths will be essential in order to acquire all the different kinds of arrows and stone tools for our museum. After a productive trading session, Hobby set up a new chest to store all the resources he would need for the passive mob farm. He diligently worked through the night gathering all the necessary materials. Meanwhile, I was finally nearing the completion of my cliffs. The basic shape was essentially in place, allowing me to focus on the finishing touches that will bring the landscape to life. The next day, Hobby continued gathering resources for the passive mob farm. He collected wood, wool, campfires, and glass until he was finally prepared to transport everything to his perimeter. While Hobby started shipping his cargo on the horse highway, I spent the day gathering and placing birchwood until the beach was almost completely encircling the museum. All the new land I had added to the island was starting to attract some tourists. Uh-oh, we got pillagers here. What the heck?
Wait, what?
Why now?
Where?
After all that, this reminded us, now that the raid farm was fully operational, there was no longer any reason to delay extending the water around the new perimeter. Thus, it was time for Hobby to expand our ocean, something we hadn't done in what felt like ages.
What a neat time.
He got to work submerging the flatlands as I celebrated finally being finished with my beach. Completing such a gigantic task was such a good feeling. I set out to mossify all the remaining dirt on Museum Mountain and get all the lighting hidden beneath carpet. Hobby was equally dialed in on the flooding, and the two of us just grinded the day away. The mossification and flooding process continued on day 474. About halfway through the day, it began to drizzle, casting a bit of a gloomy haze over our day of toil. Then, to make matters worse, another band of pillagers emerged to taunt us.
Oh, there's a pillager raid over there. Okay.
Now they're spawning everywhere. Hobby swiftly dealt with the intruders, and then, to clear the bad omen they had cast upon him, he downed some fresh milk straight from the pail. The next day, fueled by pure determination, we set out to complete the Great Moss and Flood. As we worked, we kept each other company, reminiscing about nostalgic music.
My heart's a stereo. Beats for you, so now listen close.
Time flew by, and before we knew it, Hobby had successfully flooded the 12-chunk radius. As night descended and the mobs began to creep, I grew the final patches of moss and promptly retired for the night. But the next day, I discovered an unexpected issue with Museum Mountain. A lone slime chunk had turned the entire beach into a slime resort. While I busied myself grabbing birch slabs and moss carpets to slime-proof the problematic area, Hobby began chopping down spruce trees at his perimeter and planting new ones to continue converting all of the grass to podzol. The next morning, recognizing that too many nights were being skipped due to the dark and treacherous perimeter, Hobby dedicated his efforts to thoroughly lighting up the area. This would ensure that our future evenings would be both productive and safe and allow us to work uninterrupted. Back on the island, I had successfully resolved the slime chunk issues. With that behind me, I was eager to start enhancing the mountain's flora with some small trees and bushes. So I dedicated the day to collecting oak wood and gathering azalea leaves and moss. The following day, I was ready to begin installing the carefully sculpted shrubberies. While planting the topiaries, I also interspersed some natural-looking azalea trees amongst the cliffs for the sake of variety. Meanwhile, Hobby once again spent the day proliferating his podzol.
I'm puzzling the whole world very slowly. This puzzle arc is a little boring, but I'm getting through it.
I felt kind of bad for him, but at the same time, we're both used to the grind in this world by now. I wanted to build at least one more palm tree to amplify the feeling of approaching a lush island oasis. So I used up 12 more brown dye to make some candles. Then, after gathering all the other resources I needed, I began building palm tree number 2, just as the sunrise ushered in day 479. I chose to place the new palm at the cave entrance to our future storage room. I imagine it's gonna feel so adventurous rowing in and out of here once everything is finished. Those brown candles
candles I crafted became coconuts at the top of the tree. Normally I would use pots for this, but since we can't make them, the candles are a great substitute. Once again, I was careful to lay moss carpet on any of the blocks in the palm tree's canopy that could be a potential spawning space for mobs. Over at the pods all perimeter, Hobby's patience was wearing thin, and he chose to dive into building the passive mob farm, postponing any obligation to the perimeter for later. After all, procrastinating on projects is a highly effective strategy in our world. Once again, he used a Lightmatica overlay to ensure the farm was constructed with 100% accuracy. Hobby found the design in this great video by Arsenal MC7, who designed it for a Skyblock playthrough. But before much progress could be made on the farm, Hobby's dirt supply ran out, and he headed back towards the base to grab some from our storage room. His reaction upon approaching our island by boat made my day.
Oh, it looks so good. I see it.
I'm so happy with it. Now that Museum Mountain was looking amazing, the next step to completing the museum project was to actually finish the exterior of the building. For that, I already knew I was going to use up a ton of mud, so it was time to start collecting as much as possible. Like a lot of things in Structuralist Superflat, automating mud farming is pretty much impossible without any of the redstone components that require stone to craft. But to my surprise, farming the mud by hand wasn't as slow as I had thought. I laid down the dirt in a snaking pattern, which allowed me to really quickly saturate all of it with the water between the rows. I kept farming the mud like this for the entire day. Meanwhile, after grabbing what he needed for the passive mob farm, Hobby spent some time creating a connection from the perimeter to the horse highway so that it'll be easier to transport cargo to and fro. After that, he resumed the construction of the passive mob farm. The original design from Arsenal's video used a lot of glowstone in the farm to maintain a light level of 9 or greater on each spawnable space, which is what animals need to spawn. But given the scarcity of glowstone in our world, even with our raid farm, Hobby had to adapt the farm to use torches instead. So he was forced to carefully check the light levels of each block as he built. Clearly, I had the easy job. All I had to do was mindlessly splash this dirt. You gotta love a job where nothing can go wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, the totem.
To my relief, the sun came up shortly after my near-death experience, meaning not only was I safe from more creeper jump scares, but also another 10 days had passed. It had been another grindy 10 days for sure, but the amount of progress we were making made all of our hard work worth it. I continued my mud farming quest on day 481. After I finished converting all the mud I had brought, I carried it over to our wheat farm to craft a bunch of it into packed mud and mud bricks. With these materials all set to go, I began expanding the foundation of the museum. I extended the walls right along the edge of the terraforming I had done, and it felt like a puzzle smoothly falling into place. While I was busy renovating the museum, Hobby was able to get a substantial amount done on the passive mob farm. Things were going pretty smoothly. That is, until I spotted a griefer attempting to dismantle Museum Mountain. Like an attack dog, I pounced at the pest in a blind rage, but thankfully somehow I managed to take him down without losing another life.
Oh, that was close. He almost got me twice.
Do you have another totem or?
Nope, not yet.
Day 482 brought with it rainy skies. I decided to switch things up and build some spiral staircases within those towers I had worked on earlier in the episode. Connectivity is always a top priority in my Minecraft bases, and I find a lot of satisfaction in ensuring every part of the world is easily accessible. Ah!
You alright?
Yeah. That was such a jump scare.
After another day of work on the passive mob farm, Hobby swung by the base to resupply and say hi.
I'm gonna say hello to you since I haven't seen you in forever.
Hello. Come to me.
I have a gift for you. Here.
Wow. Wait. Come see the staircase. Now you can get up here.
Oh, I'm dizzy. I must return to my project.
So long, farewell.
Hobby arrived back at the perimeter the next morning and got back to work building up the passive mob farm. It was back to work for me too. Although the spiral staircases were a fun little distraction, I really do need to buckle down on building the museum if I want to get it done by day 500. So I placed in a layer of looms above the mud foundation and then spent a considerable amount of time farming oak wood at the tree farm. The farm doesn't prevent large oak trees from growing, so it was a slow and painful process. But once I had collected enough oak wood, I began laying down a strip of stripped oak on top of the looms. Above that, I prepared the frames for the windows, and after trading with the librarians, I had plenty of glass panes ready to slide into place. Over at the perimeter, Hobby finished up the first layer of the passive mob farm.
I think the layers are done. You guys need to build a boat clock now.
The next step was to create the timing mechanism for the water flushing system. So Hobby began to set up the redstone. On day 484, I placed in all of the windows for the museum walls until I ran out of oak wood. It might look a little repetitive now, but I think when it's done, it's gonna look so cool. But unfortunately, off in Hobbyland, things were going wrong.
So, I wanted this in the center, but I can't center this. So what was the point of this? Whatever. I don't need it to be centered. I don't need to change all this. Doesn't matter.
Uh-oh.
I'm dying inside right now.
After all we'd been through, a simple redstone clock was gonna be the thing to take Hobby out of the series.
My doomsday clock.
But somehow he persevered and kept wiring all the components together. Before he could finish, however, our night was cut short by some mobs spawning on the museum walls. I spent the next morning cleaning up my mess and trying not to pop another totem in the process. My goal for the day was to finish the spruce walls on the museum interior. As I was battling a griefer inside the museum, Hobby officially finished the passive mob farm. This meant it was time for the final step of getting the passive mob farm to begin producing: the purge. In order for our farm to be effective, Hobby needs to 1. Clear out all the grass from both spawn and our perimeter, and 2. Eliminate any animals in our spawn chunks.
Yep, I'm starting the slaying.
Now that the museum had a back, Hobby's view on the way back to the base was even better.
Ooh, this is really nice to look at. You have such a pretty island.
After a short boat ride, he arrived at Spawn Island, soon to be our very own chocolate island. Hobby began this sort of mini game where you have to get rid of the grass before it can spread to the layers beneath it and cause you even more work.
I gotta break all this grass before I can grow it back. I'm making a mess.
But as night fell, mobs began to interrupt Hobby's grass removal, and we decided to pass the night. The next morning, Hobby surveyed the land looking for any grass he missed.
Okay. Hope I got it all.
You gotta double check, because if even one's left behind, it'll take over the island.
Oh, there's one right there. Wow.
After confirming the grass was gone, he moved on to removing the animals.
Well, time to kill these cows.
Back on the island, I spent the morning collecting more oak wood. Pretty soon, Hobby was finished with spawn and heading back towards the base.
Oh, there's a little fish in our ocean. How'd that get here?
I probably placed it a long time ago.
I have vague memories of dumping fish into the ocean way back in the first 100 days. I know it's just a digital fish, but I kind of feel like it's special that it's still out there swimming around to this day.
Had to kill these cows through slime-infested waters.
Before long, the only step remaining was to finish the perimeter, so Hobby headed there to finish the job. After his experience at Spawn Island, he concluded that his podzol strategy was not effective, so he switched to digging out the grass instead. Meanwhile, I was placing in all the oak wood I collected.
Ah, no, run! Ah, Mog Farm.
I decided to simply avoid the museum until daylight so we wouldn't have to skip the night. I wanted to get more oak wood, but I was so fed up with large oak trees growing that I decided to go ahead and create a quick oak tree farm in noisy caverns. I placed a few rows of saplings and then positioned some slabs above them to block them from growing into large oak trees. It's such a simple farm, but it's gonna save me so much headache. The next morning, Hobby began to replace the grass he dug at the perimeter.
Replacing the grass with spruce planks.
But before he could get very far, he needed to head back to the base to quickly mend his shovel. In the safety of daylight, I was finally able to go back to constructing the museum walls.
I see you.
You do? Oh, hi.
Hi. I'm on my way.
Hobby returned to sprucing up his perimeter, and we both worked very hard until night fell and we each began struggling with mobs. On the morning of day 488, with only the perimeter's completion standing between us and the passive mob farm, I decided it was time for my first visit. Upon my arrival, passive mobs already began spawning inside the perimeter, which was an excellent indication that Hobby's preparations had been a success. He was quite pleased with the results of our experiment and promptly returned to placing in the spruce planks to finish the farm once and for all.
Thank you for helping me confirm this.
After my visit, I returned my focus to the museum. First, I added lanterns to the exterior walls to prevent mob spawns on the mud slab trim. Then, I worked on a big window for the center of the back wall. Even though I wanted the side and back walls of the museum to be quite a bit more simple than the grand front facade, I still wanted to include a few key focal points to draw the eye. By the end of the day, I was getting started with the roof line. I wanted to use gray wool for the roof, but I was gonna need quite a few stacks to complete it. Fortunately, we had a decent supply stored away in our wool storage chest, so I opted to use that up. Meanwhile, at the perimeter, Hobby made some solid progress, reaching about the halfway mark.
I actually might go through this whole chest of wood. Who knows? Comments. Tell me if I'm gonna go through this whole chest of wood or not.
You're a natural born YouTuber.
Using the wool I found, I made significant headway on the roof. I even incorporated some quaint gable windows to break up the monotony of the roof line. The peaceful tranquility of the early morning hours on day 490 was abruptly shattered by a sudden clap of thunder.
Thunderstorm, thunderstorm.
But before I could even reach our pigs, the thunder had already passed. Sometimes you get these really short storms and there's just not much to be done about it. On the way back to the museum, I traded with our librarians for large sums of glass, which I plan to use for a resplendent skylight to filter natural light into our future gallery of artifacts. But before I could install the skylight, I needed more gray wool.
I should name my horse. I need to give it a name tag.
Yeah, it's your horse. Deserves a name.
Yeah, I should call it Steedfast.
Steedfast.
I worked throughout the night on the roof and skylight and became so engrossed in my work that I hardly noticed the sunrise signaling day 491. We were officially 10 days away from day 500. My heart sank as I realized how many tasks we still had left to do. Yet simultaneously, I felt a surge of motivation to push forward to the end. Hobby kicked off the day by trying to bring his horse home through his makeshift tunnel.
Didn't work out how I thought. Oh god, the horse is gonna die if I'm not quick.
After rescuing Steedfast, Hobby and his mount slowly trudged home through the water.
Oh, fishy.
I spent my morning placing an elegant spruce wood trim along the skylight.
Oh, it's looking really nice. See, you got to like the roof.
Yup, getting there. Hobby repaired his shovel and then used a name tag to officially dub his horse Steedfast.
Steedfast.
Armed with a fresh shovel, Hobby returned to the passive mob farm to continue his work, while I focused on improving the skylight. I incorporated trapdoors and stairs around the glass, creating an ornate, wire-like structure with a level of sophistication befitting of a museum of this caliber. After a sunset stroll to the sheep farm to grab more roofing, I returned to my work on the museum. But my productivity was promptly challenged by the museum's hostile late-night patrons.
492 now. I'm placing in the last row of planks.
About a minute into the day, Hobby was finally able to finish off his perimeter, meaning the first few layers of the passive mob farm were now fully operational.
It is done. The floor is floor.
Yay. I could tell Hobby was very relieved to be finished with such a grindy task. To finish things off, he placed down the campfires, which will act as the killing mechanism for the farm.
No, it's just gonna take a lot of hoppers. Yeah, so if you come over here, it should start working.
Upon hearing that, I immediately raced towards the southeast coast, clambered aboard a spruce boat, and began rowing towards the farm for its first test. During my departure, I couldn't help but admire the museum's new roof.
Ahoy!
Ahoy hoy.
I'm doing a little fixie-wixie.
What's wrong with it?
Oh. Because they didn't have a dust right there. There we go.
With that, it was time for the test. We both stood 24 blocks away from the farm to activate it and held our breath.
Hopefully they spawn soon.
Maybe we need to go back a little further. So it turns out our farm was working, just really slowly. We've only built a quarter of the layer so far, but to build more of it, we need to use the raid farm and mob farm to get much more redstone and glowstone. We were still really happy the farm was working, even if it was very slow for now.
You wanna ride with me to the island?
Yes.
Let's go.
Woohoo!
This is such a nice view to come back to the island too.
It is, it's beautiful.
That needs to get done.
Yeah, I'm really happy with that. Hobby headed to the iron farm to gather the raw materials needed for all the collection hoppers in the passive mob farm. However, he discovered that our iron supply was beginning to dwindle and we still hadn't repaired the farm. With time waning thin and an impending iron shortage on the horizon, we needed to act swiftly. But rather than take action to address the emergency, we instead chose to goof off and add some fake beacon beams to our beacons. We decided we're gonna race each other to world height. Which one do you want to be? The iron or the emerald?
I'll be emerald because I did all the emerald trading. Let's see, what color glass are we gonna use? I like blue.
I think I want to do red. I spent the rest of the evening crafting a bunch of stacks of red glass panes to use in the race. Oh, I made way too many by accident. Okay. Collecting enough blue flowers to dye his glass panes turned out to be quite a lengthy endeavor for Hobby, which was great timing for me, because while attempting to create a safe water pool to fall into, I accidentally devastated the royal gardens. Is that gonna screw? No, 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 no! I'm such a fool. I'm such a fool. By the time I had painstakingly restored the garden to its former glory, Hobby had finished gathering blue dye and was primed for the big race.
All right, I think I'm ready to start placing. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. But as it turns out, dearest viewer, I was in fact not ready.
1, 2, 3.
Here we go.
Ugh,
Oh, this is crazy looking already.
I misplaced one pane, but I'll fix that when I get down.
You misplaced one?
Yeah,
That's gotta deduct some points then.
okay.
Or does your time finish when you get to the... Oh no, I forgot the rest of my paint! I put them in
No.
a chest! No!
I think I'm gonna win this.
I lose. No. I grabbed the panes as fast as I could, but when I realized I had no blocks to pillar back up with, I was forced to concede defeat. You win. I'll fix your thing for you.
This is a neat view. There's like a big circle around me on this island. First time in being this high in the world.
I grabbed some slime blocks to use for scaffolding as Hobby continued to ascend into space.
Mog, you still alive?
As I slowly pillared back up with slime blocks, Hobby reached the world height.
I did it. I'm at 320.
Could no longer see where the water was, so jumping off was going to be a bit of a leap of faith.
Alright, I landed safely.
As I pillared up, all I could think about was the glaring hole in the museum roof. Hey, can you do me a favor?
Yeah?
Can you shear the gray sheep for me?
Okay, back to the old days.
Well, I'm just, while I'm up here. Finally, it was time for me to make my jump. I had to land on the slime block to make sure I could break the pillar on my way down. Okay, I have to land on this slime block.
I'm watching. The sheep are in my way.
Here we go.
I see you. You're following.
Oh my god. Oh!
You did it.
It popped a totem though. I think it was because I landed on the glass pane and not the slime block.
Yeah, you got our red and blue beacons. That's awesome.
At last, our fake beacons were activated. I ran around for a bit to enjoy my fake speed and fake jump boost. Then Hobby and I hung out for a bit in noisy caverns. He tended to the dripstone while I harvested the oak tree farm.
Here's some gray wool.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Yeah.
While I went back to work on the museum roof, Hobby decided to spend the afternoon enchanting a powerful iron sword for me, since I had been killing mobs with my axe for quite a while.
Alright, I gotta think of a sword name. I'll call it the Zenith Blade. Alright, here you go. And here you go, some of that again.
Thank you.
Merry birthday.
Thanks to Hobby's Birthmas present, I didn't have to shear sheep and I could focus all of my efforts on completing the museum roof. I began adding a fancy roof cresting with alternating spruce slabs and mud brick walls. But it was becoming hard to focus as my roommate's bad habits came back to haunt him.
Where did I put these? Oh no, I lost them. My disorganization's killing me right now.
I see you scrambling around down there by the seaweed bar.
Also, there's a skeleton on my beacon. It's not, I need to keep it lit.
We realized we had replaced the torches on top of the beacons with the glass panes and we needed to light things up. I put down some lanterns on my beacon and when I went to do Hobby's, I noticed that he had placed his torches in the corners instead of the centers. We really are like yin and yang. Hobby dropped me more gray wool and then disappeared into the night.
Back to the animal farm.
But before getting back up on the roof, I chose to spend some time lighting up the front lawn of the museum properly to get rid of the ugly torches. Just before the sun came up, Hobby managed to place in all the hoppers for the animal farm collection system. On day 495, I scrambled back up to the roof to finish placing in the gray wool. At the same time, Hobby decided it was now or never to construct a new iron farm, so he started researching designs that might offer a suitable replacement. Unfortunately, our previous design had broken because of a change to the zombies' reach, which led to our villagers' untimely murder by our zombie captives. This meant that we needed to transport new villagers to the area in order to construct the replacement farm. While Hobby contended with the logistics of that, I continued building the roof's cresting. I added in spruce fences and chains to create ornate decorative finials, and I was thoroughly pleased with the outcome. Sadly, before I could complete the job, I was forced to gather a bit more packed mud. While Hobby continued to scout for our new iron golem farm, he began demolishing the old one.
And they really did increase its reach. Ow.
Meanwhile, just as the sun began to rise, I was able to finish off the roof cresting. The following day, I had one last thing to consider before calling the roof complete: mob proofing. So I started placing lanterns on the roof and checking all the light levels with Mini HUD. But once all the little numbers on the ground turned green, I was ready to call the museum exterior finished. Now it was time to help out my roomie. Hobby finally picked out a tutorial by Adil Gamez for an iron farm designed by Gecko. So he sent me the resource list and the two of us began getting everything together.
I don't know if I can get this done in time.
We got this. We'll work together.
Heck yeah. Teamwork.
Once Hobby finished the demolition of the old farm, he began building a makeshift railroad to transport the villagers from the breeder and noisy caverns to our new farm. Just as it turned day 497, I finished gathering all the materials for the farm. Everything you need is in there, as far as I can tell. It was truly gonna take some teamwork to get this thing set up in time, but we were up to the challenge. I took over Hobby's job of getting the villagers over to the build site. We needed 12 villagers in total, so I began laying down all the rail and getting ready to wrangle them one by one. Meanwhile, Hobby started building the farm with the materials I had gathered. As the seconds ticked away, we were both feeling the pressure. Build as fast as you can, Hobby. Just as I finished grabbing all 12 villagers in minecarts, Hobby showed his true gamer skills.
My first MLG bucket clutch. I usually mess up. I'll take the small victory.
Choo choo.
You got him.
The Testificate Express.
You have a certificate.
With the villagers all safely transported, our hopes of finishing the farm in time had truly improved. I'm gonna leave the bridge up for now, just in case something happens.
29 will be like cleanup day.
Every day's cleanup day around you.
I'm not that messy.
Yeah, okay.
You can have way worse people than me. Just keep them.
Soon it was day 498, and the 500-day mark drew ever closer. I started extending the railway to get ready to move the villagers into their spots. Meanwhile, Hobby finished constructing the containment pods. Then he moved on to building the spot for the zombie while I started moving each villager into place. But on my second villager, I was already running into issues. Dude, why? Why would he just walk off? Why would he just walk off the... Okay. Gonna have to get another villager. While my villager struggle continued, Hobby prepared to move our zombie into place.
I want to make powered rails.
Wait, why?
Because pushing the zombie is gonna be fun without it.
But Hobby went ahead and crafted 18 powered rails. I thought he was only gonna craft one set, so I was a little peeved. Dang, you spent up all our gold? Why would you do that?
We have 3 blocks.
We need a lot of gold stuff for the museum, and Hobby's frivolous spending may have made it so that we'll have to do more gold farming to complete our collection. Big spender over here.
We don't use them for anything else anyways.
We need them for the museum. Big spender. I can't believe you did 3, dude.
I'm just living life, okay?
Oh my gosh.
You don't understand, Mog. I needed this many.
But Hobby made up for it by sharing some golden carrots with me.
I'll feed you, my child. Bam. You'll no longer starve another day.
Speaking of the day, it was now day 499, meaning we had to finish the new Iron Golem farm today if we wanted to have time for celebrating. So I spent the morning wrangling another villager to replace the one who had fallen. Hobby created a storage area for the farm and made sure that all the slime chunks were fully carpeted. Once it was nighttime, I was ready to get the last 3 villagers into place. The first 2 easily found their beds, but the last villager just refused to climb into his cell.
Last one? Please, buddy, just be good. Oh, come on, buddy. You got this. What is he doing?
He's being silly.
He is being silly. It's stressing me out, too. He's messing with me.
As time slipped by, we began to worry that we wouldn't have time to get the zombies in place before sunrise.
Dude, this is like the worst case. Come on, villager.
This is awful.
The villager really started making me nervous when I placed a block and he began repeatedly jumping on and off it, teetering dangerously close to the edge.
What's wrong with him?
Finally, we decided to simply put the zombie into place and hope that it would scare the unruly villager into compliance. But luckily, just as we were about to do so, our villager had a change of heart.
Oh, he's going. He's going. Nice.
Okay.
So, with the last villager in place, we were ready to relocate the zombie.
It's time. I'm excited. Ooh, I'm nervous. I hope this works. Oh,
Good thing you have 10 trillion powered rails.
good thing. Yeah,
While Hobby got the zombie back onto the track, I worked on getting rid of the dirt scaffolding.
I'm stressed. I'm so stressed.
Tensions were super high as we worked as quickly as possible to finish the project.
Okay. Now it's time.
With one good push, the zombie was off.
Okay, he's going.
Looks like he's in place.
Like a surgeon, Hobby reached down to remove the zombie from the minecart as we got our first iron golem in the farm. We had actually done it.
Okay. Eek. It spawned in the block and killed him.
Yeah. With just a few minutes to go before day 500, our zombie had perished. Rest in peace, Porkchop 1.
Wow. Wow.
We both felt absolutely defeated. Hobby was trying his very best to stay positive.
It's okay. It's okay. We got it back up. Okay, that was very close to a rage moment for me. Okay. It's okay. It's okay.
It was officially day 500, but instead of jubilation, a somber mood had settled over us, exaggerated further by the rainy weather. But on the bright side, the rain meant we could transport the new zombie during the day and not worry about him burning in the sunlight. Soon, Hobby was ready for attempt number 2.
Okay, he's going up.
I could tell he was nervous because he could barely respond to me.
Did you get it?
We were able to get the zombie into place, but Hobby still couldn't relax until the zombie was completely covered and all of the scaffolding was removed.
Okay.
You okay?
Okay, I'm out.
But after climbing back up and double checking everything one last time, Hobby was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief.
Okay. This should be done.
If we add a Vindicator into the farm in the future, it'll work twice as fast. But as is, the farm is already just as powerful as our old design. While Hobby frantically finished up the farm all morning, I was crafting fireworks for the big celebration. It was finally time for us to decompress and process everything we'd accomplished in this episode.
Oh, Mog, my lifespan is drained.
I feel you. That was stressful.
The two of us climbed onto the celebration terrace and watched the silhouettes of mobs cascading down against the endless expanse of pastel sky. The falling monsters were a poignant reminder of the numerous breakthroughs we achieved in this episode. The raid farm, the flushing mob farm, the animal farm. We've developed technologies we once thought to be beyond our reach entirely. Even the smaller, simpler farms we established in this episode have each made a substantial impact. The sugarcane farm, the cactus farm, and even the dripstone and oak farms. Each one, though modest in scope, has moved us closer to achieving our mission of having every obtainable item at our fingertips. And that was something to celebrate.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go. Wow.
I haven't used these in years.
Wow, the lime. The sparkle. Wow.
Oh, I love pixels.
All right, ready for the net finale? 3,
Ready.
2, 1, go.
Oh,
Oh, yay!
we did it.
With that, it was time to update our map. So I grabbed the old one, duplicated it, and then locked the original copy. Then Hobby and I split the map pieces amongst ourselves and began updating them.
Oh, this is cool seeing it pop into existence.
The mob farm appeared out of nowhere. That's cool.
We crafted some item frames and created a new spot for the map on the opposite side of the old one. We compared the two maps to each other and were so pleased with the new additions to the island. We still have 1 or 2 things left to do. Like, we really want to make a map art together. But other than that, at this point,
the only thing left to do in our world was to complete our museum by collecting every possible item in Structureless Superflat and beating the challenge once and for all. But sadly, there will never be a 600 days. Because we're skipping straight to 1,000, baby!
Oh,
1,000 days just dirt is coming! See you in another year! Hobby and Mogswamp for eternity, just the two of us, just dirt forever! Just dirt forever, Hobby! Oh, if you stick with me, we can do great things, Hobby! Just trust me, Hobby, normal terrain is our enemy!
Jeez.
Don't you see, Hobby? Trust me, Hobby, it'll be nothing but dirt, Hobby! As far as the eye can see, Hobby!
Okay.
100 more days! 1,000 days of dirt with Hobby. Well, we could do 1,000,000 days if we have to. We'll go with 1,000,000,000,000,000,000 days. Mogswamp and Hobby. The Adventures of Mogswampandhobby.com. Just dirt. 100 days just dirt with Mogswampandhobby.com. www.